Okay, so you want to own a medieval blacksmith shop. You picture the business first. A low timber building at the edge of a village, smoke rising from the roof, a forge glowing orange in the dark, a hammer ringing against an anvil, farmers waiting with broken tools, a cartwheel leaning by the door, a horse outside stamping in the mud, iron bars stacked near the wall, tongs, hammers, files, chisels, and half-finished work hanging where only the smith knows how to reach them. From the outside, it looks like one of the safest businesses in the medieval world. Everybody needs iron. The farmer needs a cutting edge on his plow. The carter needs a wheel fitting. The miller needs a bracket repaired. The householder needs a hinge, a hook, a lock plate, or a pot mended before it becomes useless. Travelers need animals shod. The manor needs tools maintained. The village cannot simply stop using metal because the smith is busy. So the surface math feels obvious. Buy iron, heat it, hammer it into useful things. Charge everyone because everyone needs the work. That is the dream. Here is the first crack. In the Middle Ages, wood and clay were cheap. Iron was not. That single fact changes the entire business. The blacksmith was essential because iron was necessary, but he was also expensive because iron was scarce, fuel-hungry, and difficult to work. The customer saw a repaired tool. The smith saw the iron stock, the charcoal, the heat, the worn hammer, the apprentice at the bellows, the time lost on small repairs, and a customer who might pay after harvest rather than today. The shop could be loud. The work could be constant. The cash could still be thin. That is the problem. A medieval blacksmith shop was not really a metal business. Not really. It was a fuel business, a repair business, a tool capital business, a seasonal demand business, a credit business. And above all, it was a reliability business for a world where one broken iron edge could slow down an entire day's work. The spark is what the village notices. The ledger is what decides whether the smith survives. To understand the trap, start with what the blacksmith actually sold. He did not simply sell objects. He sold continuity. If a plowshare broke during a crucial farming window, the problem was not just a piece of metal. It was time. It was land not turned. It was a field delayed. It was a harvest slightly more at risk. If a cart fitting failed, goods could not move. If a hinge broke, a door could not close properly. If a cooking pot cracked or a hook failed, domestic work became harder. If an animal lost a shoe on the road, transport slowed or stopped. The smith was paid because the village could not afford for useful things to stay broken. That is the first hidden product. Not metal, uptime. The blacksmith sold the ability for farms, carts, kitchens, mills, animals, and households to keep functioning. And that sounds powerful, but power is not the same as easy profit. The first thing the smith has to buy is not iron. It is the shop itself. A forge needs a place that can tolerate heat, smoke, noise, sparks, soot, customers, animals, tools, and heavy work. It needs a hearth or forge, bellows, an anvil or anvil stone, hammers, tongs, chisels, punches, files, swages, water for quenching, racks for bar iron and scrap, space for wheels and tools, storage for fuel, and enough room that the work does not set the whole building against itself. This is not a market stall. It is a small industrial room. Before the first customer pays, the smith already owns or rents a costly set of equipment. And the equipment does not stay perfect. Hammers wear, tongs bend, files dull, anvils scar, bellows crack, forge linings break down, water troughs leak. Every tool that makes the work possible is also a tool that needs maintenance. This is why the blacksmith's own toolkit was one of the first hidden costs. A farmer might come in holding one broken part. The smith is standing inside a whole room of expensive things required to fix it. The customer thinks he is paying for 10 minutes of hammering. He is really paying for the shop that made those 10 minutes possible. Now comes iron. Medieval people used wood for buildings, clay for pots, leather for harness, bone and horn for small objects, and stone where it made sense. Iron was reserved for the places where cheaper materials failed: cutting edges, nails, fittings, hinges, hoops, blades for tools, cart hardware, locks, chains, horseshoes, and repairs that had to survive force. That made iron valuable. It also meant the smith had to be careful. Waste was expensive. Bad work was expensive. A failed weld, a cracked piece, a misjudged heat, or a bad measurement could turn valuable stock into scrap. Scrap could be reused, but reuse took time and fuel. Even a mistake that was recoverable still consumed part of the margin. And the blacksmith did not always control the price of iron. Behind the shop was a much larger supply chain. Iron ore had to be mined or gathered. It had to be smelted, often in bloomery furnaces in earlier medieval practice, using charcoal as the fuel and reducing agent. The result was a spongy bloom of wrought iron mixed with slag. That bloom had to be hammered, reheated, consolidated, and worked into usable bar iron before a village smith could turn it into tools. The bar on the smith's rack already contains a whole history of labor: ore, charcoal, heat, hammering, transport, middlemen. That is why the iron itself was not just raw material. It was stored value. Every bar in the corner was money waiting to become something useful. And if demand slowed, that money just sat there. Now look at the fuel. The forge does not run on talent. It runs on heat. In much of medieval Europe, that meant charcoal for high-temperature work. Charcoal was not simply wood. It was wood that had already been cut, stacked, slowly burned in a controlled way, cooled, transported, and protected. Its value came from the labor and woodland behind it. The customer sees sparks. The smith sees fuel disappearing into air. Every repair consumes heat. Every reheating consumes heat. Every mistake consumes heat twice. A small job that looks cheap may require repeated heating, fitting, hammering, checking, reheating, and finishing. The actual metal may be small, but the fire does not care. It burns while the smith works, and while the apprentice keeps the air moving. This is the second trap. The shop sells small pieces of ironwork, but it pays for continuous heat. If the smith is lucky, jobs stack efficiently. A morning of small repairs can be arranged around one hot fire. If he is unlucky, customers arrive one by one, each job requiring the forge to be brought back to life again. The ledger likes batches. The village brings interruptions. Now open the doors on a busy day. A farmer brings a worn tool edge. A carter brings a broken fitting. A woman brings a pot hanger that no longer holds. A stable boy asks about shoes for an animal. A manor servant wants several hinges repaired. A miller needs a small iron part made before work can continue. Everyone says the same thing in different words. Can you do it quickly? That question is the whole business. The smith's value comes from urgency. But urgency also destroys planning. The most profitable work is not always the most urgent work. A custom order may pay better than a simple repair, but the repair may belong to a man whose plow is idle. A wealthy customer may want a neat fitting, but the manor may need a tool fixed now. A traveler may be willing to pay in cash, but a local farmer may pay after the harvest and expect priority because he has known the smith for years. This is where the blacksmith shop becomes less like a workshop and more like a small traffic control system for local necessity. The smith is not just choosing jobs, he is choosing relationships. Say yes to the wrong urgent repair and a better paying order waits. Say no to the wrong farmer and the village remembers. Serve the manor first and common customers resent it. Ignore the manor and the rent, charcoal, or protection arrangement may become harder next year. The shop is full of iron. The real material is obligation. Now think about revenue. The obvious revenue is making new things. Horseshoes, hinges, nails, hook, straps, hoops, tools, knife-like cutting edges for work tools, pot repairs, cart fittings, door hardware, small pieces for mills, farms, barns, and households. But the hidden revenue is repair. Medieval economies were not built around throwing useful objects away quickly. When iron was expensive, people made things last. A tool that broke was not automatically replaced. A fitting that bent was straightened. A worn edge was reforged. A part that cracked was patched or reshaped if possible. Old iron was saved, reused, and turned into something else. That makes the smith essential. It also limits him. Repair work can be steady, but it may not be rich. A customer who wants a broken tool mended is often trying to avoid the cost of a new tool. He needs the smith, but he does not necessarily arrive with generous cash. That is the strange position of the village blacksmith. He serves people at the exact moment they are trying not to spend too much. The work is necessary. The customer may still bargain. The smith may be respected. The margin may still be small. In towns, a master smith might be part of a guild structure. Guilds could regulate training, quality, competition, and sometimes prices or standards. That could protect a skilled worker from unlicensed competition, but it also added rules, dues, expectations, and limits. In a village, the structure might be less formal, but the social pressure was just as real. Everyone knew the smith. Everyone knew whether his work held. Reputation was a revenue stream. It was also a risk account. One bad batch of work could follow him around the village longer than the sound of the hammer. Now look at labor. A blacksmith working alone is limited by the number of hands he has. The bellows need working. The hot metal needs holding. Heavy pieces need a striker. Tools need arranging. Fuel needs carrying. Scrap needs sorting. Customers need answering. An apprentice or helper can make the shop much more productive. But that helper has to be fed, housed, trained, supervised, and kept from ruining expensive material while learning. Apprenticeship was central to medieval trades. A young apprentice might live with a master for years, receiving food, lodging, clothing, and training rather than normal wages. That arrangement could be valuable for the master, but it was not free labor in the clean way outsiders imagine. The master carried another mouth, another body in the household, another person to teach, and another source of mistakes. And blacksmithing is not a craft where mistakes stay abstract. Bad heat ruins work. Bad hammering cracks work. Bad measuring wastes iron. Bad timing wastes fuel. Teaching the trade means letting someone make errors inside a business where errors are costly. So the shop owner faces another balance. Work alone and capacity is limited. Train help and the shop grows more capable but more complicated. The successful smith is not just a strong arm. He is a manager of heat, tools, labor, customers, and timing. Now put the blacksmith into the year. Spring brings field work. Tools need edges. Plows need attention. Carts and harness fittings come back into use. Customers are urgent because the land is waking up. Summer brings repairs around harvest preparation, transport, buildings, and animals. The shop can be busy, but customers may be short on cash until crops or livestock produce income. Autumn brings heavy demand and payment pressure. Harvest may bring money into the village, but it also brings more breakage, more transport, more need to prepare tools, carts, storage, and household goods for colder months. Winter changes the pattern. Outdoor work slows. Some repairs can finally be done. Tools can be prepared for spring. But fewer customers may have cash. Fuel is still needed. The forge may feel good to stand near, but the shop has to pay for that heat. This is the third trap. Demand is real, but uneven. The village always needs the smith in principle. It does not always need him at the same profitable pace. A month of urgent work can be followed by weeks of small repairs and promises. The anvil may be quiet, but the smith still has to eat. The rent or obligation still exists. The tools still need maintenance. The iron stock still ties up money. There is another problem hiding inside the size of the jobs. Many of the most necessary tasks are small. A hook, a hinge pin, a nail repair, a fitting adjusted, a tool edge sharpened, a strap straightened, a pot hanger repaired, a small iron part remade because the old one snapped in a place no one expected. Small work is valuable because it keeps life moving, but small work can be awkward to price. Charge too much for a tiny repair and the customer feels cheated. Charge too little and the fuel, time, and attention vanish into a job that barely paid for itself. The smith has to decide whether to treat the repair as a quick favor, a paid job, or part of a longer relationship with a household that will return again and again. That is where the ledger gets delicate. The biggest looking job is not always the best job. A large custom piece may take more iron, more heat, more risk, and more waiting for payment. A small repair for the right customer may strengthen a relationship that brings steady work for years. A small repair for the wrong customer may become one more unpaid line in the book. The shop is full of practical work, but the profit is hidden in judgment. That is why World History Encyclopedia notes a hard truth about village blacksmiths. They could be essential and still not always busy enough to earn a full living from smithing alone. Many inherited the business from their fathers, and many also farmed some land to make ends meet. A smith tied to a manor or castle could be better positioned, especially if he received charcoal from the lord's woodland, or had help maintaining his own strip of farmland while he worked. That is the blacksmith business in one sentence. Essential does not always mean rich. Now build a simple ledger. Imagine a village smith with a small shop, a forge, an anvil, bellows, hammers, tongs, files, chisels, punches, a water trough, fuel storage, a rack of iron, a small amount of scrap, and one apprentice or helper. On a good week, the shop looks strong. Several farmers bring tools, a carter needs fittings, a household needs hardware, a few animals need shoes. The manor sends a servant with repairs. A traveler pays cash for urgent work. The smith works from morning until the fire drops, and the sound of the hammer makes the whole village feel productive. Now subtract the part people cannot hear. Subtract iron. Subtract charcoal. Subtract tool wear. Subtract the helper's food, lodging, and training. Subtract rent or obligations. Subtract time spent on unpaid advice, measuring, fitting, waiting, reheating, correcting, and collecting. Subtract failed welds, cracked pieces, dull files, broken tongs, spoiled heat, and the work that has to be redone because the customer brought a worse problem than he described. Then subtract credit. The farmer pays after harvest. The manor pays on its own schedule. The neighbor promises to settle later. The traveler pays now, but he is only passing through. The smith's work leaves the shop immediately. The money may return slowly. Suddenly, the business looks different. The hammer was loud. The profit was quiet. In the optimistic scenario, the blacksmith shop works very well. The smith is on the right site near the road, mill, stable, manor, or market. He has reliable access to iron. He has affordable fuel. He has a trained helper. He repairs quickly. His work holds. He knows which customers pay. He schedules major work around seasonal demand. He saves scrap. He reuses metal carefully. He keeps enough iron in stock without burying all his money in bars that do not move. In that world, the smith becomes one of the most important men in the local economy. Not because every individual job is large, because every household eventually needs him. The farmer needs him when tools fail. The carter needs him when transport fails. The household needs him when hardware fails. The manor needs him when estate work slows because a metal part is missing. The smith sits at the point where the wooden world depends on iron. That position has value. But in the bad scenario, only a few normal things have to go wrong. Charcoal becomes expensive after local woodland is strained. Iron prices rise or delivery is delayed. A poor harvest makes farmers slow to pay. A new smith opens closer to a market town. The manor starts sending work to someone else. Your apprentice ruins several pieces while learning. A batch of tools fails early and customers lose confidence. From the outside, the shop still looks alive. The fire still burns. The hammer still rings. People still come through the door. Inside the ledger, the business is already under pressure, because fixed costs do not wait for perfect demand. The forge needs fuel even for small jobs. The shop needs tools whether customers are generous or not. The iron stock costs money before it becomes revenue. The helper eats whether the month is strong or weak. The owner cannot simply stop being useful without losing the very reputation that brings customers back. This is why owning a medieval blacksmith shop could be a financial trap. It looked safe because the community needed iron, but need is not the same as profit. A necessary repair is not always a high-margin repair. A respected smith is not always a wealthy smith. A full workbench is not always a full cash box. A loud forge is not always a good ledger. So who really got paid? Sometimes the smith did, especially if he controlled the right local position, had steady manor work, managed fuel carefully, reused iron wisely, and knew which customers could be trusted. But many of the deeper winners stood around the shop rather than inside it. The iron supplier got paid. The charcoal burner got paid. The landlord or lord got paid through rent, obligations, or control of the site. Guild authorities or town structures could extract dues, fees, and compliance where guild rules applied. Customers with land, animals, carts, and tools captured the value of the smith's work by keeping their own businesses moving. The smith made the village more productive. That did not mean the village gave all that value back to the smith. The weak owner saw sparks and thought skill alone would make him rich. The strong owner saw the same sparks and asked a colder question. Which jobs turn quickly? Which repairs protect relationships? Which customers pay? Which tools are worth making new? Which broken pieces can be reforged? How much iron can sit in the corner before it becomes a burden? How much charcoal can the shop burn before the small jobs stop making sense? That was the real business. The blacksmith charged for the problems created by wear, distance, farming seasons, transport, and the high cost of iron. But he also absorbed those problems. When the tool broke twice, it was his reputation. When the farmer paid late, it was his credit. When the charcoal price rose, it was his margin. When the iron delivery failed, it was his empty rack. When the apprentice made a mistake, it was his material. When the village needed him urgently, it was his schedule that broke first. So yes, a medieval blacksmith shop could make money. In the right place, with the right customers, the right access to iron and fuel, the right reputation, and the right discipline, it could become one of the most important workshops in the community. But it was never easy money.
The iron was only the surface. The real business was reliability. The customer thought he was paying for a hinge, a horseshoe, a tool edge, or a repaired fitting. He was really paying to keep work from stopping. The owner thought he was opening a forge. What he was really opening was a small machine that converted fuel, iron, skill, time, and trust into the ability for everyone else to keep moving. That is the old ledger lesson. A blacksmith shop was not rich because sparks flew from the anvil. It survived when the smith understood which sparks turned into cash, which turned into obligation, and which simply burned through fuel. Because in a medieval village, the forge could be the most important sound in the street. But importance did not pay by itself.
The fire could be hot. The room could be busy. The village could depend on you. And still, if iron, fuel, tools, and late payments ate the margin before the work turned back into money, the blacksmith shop did not become a guaranteed path to wealth. It became a glowing room where everyone else's broken tools arrived before their payments did.